This is Sam Stone with CBR here at Comic-Con International 2022 in San Diego, here with the cast and crew of Gotham Knights, the newest game from WB Games Montreal. Guys, thanks for joining me this week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So with this, and this is, let's just go ahead and lead off with a big type question. I mean, we are delving into an entirely new vision of Gotham, one without Batman, one where the villains are running amok, and it's up to the rest of the Bat family to save the day. What did you want to, how did you want to develop the story and world for such an iconic place?
Yeah, I mean, the whole gist of this was that we wanted to shake up the status quo of a Gotham City that had sort of been under the protection of a Batman for, at least 15 years. So kind of they already had that sort of familiar world set up and then disrupt it in this sort of fundamental way. And then you have this kind of estranged family of siblings, if you will, the people that have, studied under Batman as his proteges. They have to kind of come back together, not necessarily super comfortable with the idea of functioning as a team, but aware of the fact that there's a vacuum that has to be filled. And they know as well, the adversaries are going to be coming out of the woodwork, ready to take advantage of this and exploit it to their own gain as well.
And they bring their own points of views and their own style to all of this too, which allows us to refresh and look at something different in a very, long-standing, known environment. That was really fun.
With that in mind, I mean, these characters, you guys, Chris, America, you're taking on some of the two most fan-favorite characters that DC has to offer and, that have seen past iterations. What did you want to bring with your own voice to Nightwing and Batgirl and all of that?
I'm just really honored the fact that I'm an Asian American, much like you, my Hapa brother. The fact that I get to be a very, very famous superhero that has never had an Asian American voice. So I'm super proud of that, of my heritage, and the fact that these people were willing to take a chance on me, Pat, Wilson, and Ann, and the entire team.
America, anything you want to add?
Because I have loved her for so long, I didn't really feel like it was necessary to bring myself to her. It wasn't about the ego of what I bring to her. It was just trying to bring as much truth and badass and kindness and humor to her as possible that I've always gotten from her when I've read her in the comics.
Sure. And narratively, it's interesting because this isn't an origin story. These characters know each other. These characters have been fighting crime for some time. What was it about kind of having them come together but then have their own arcs outside of the shadow of the Bat for the story that you wanted to explore?
Well, on our side, we definitely have a lot of lore with all the different characters, but this is something that we want to establish once Batman is not here with the team. The four of them are really at odds with each other, and this is something that they're going to have to get together and kind of bridge to kind of become one family, one Batman family, to kind of address the villains that basically come into Gotham City.
Sure. In a lot of ways, the Batman's greatest villains define who he is. They represent different, you've got duality with Two-Face, you've got the chaotic antithesis with the Joker. What do these villains symbolize for the Bat family themselves?
You want to take that one, Bat?
Well, I can say we've only really spoken about one particular member of the Batman Rogues Gallery, Mr. Freeze, who was featured in our debut. There are going to be some additional revelations about that in the coming weeks, and we're super excited about it. What I can tell you, though, broadly is all of the villains that we chose to include have a very specific history and relationship with Batman above and beyond just the adversarial aspect of it. And like our heroes, these are villains that are now having to sort of reassess what their function is, where they sit in the ecosystem when their main adversary isn't around anymore. How are they going to redefine themselves?
What's interesting is without Batman, you've got these characters that everybody has, somebody's favorite character is Batgirl, somebody's favorite character is Nightwing, and I suppose somebody's favorite character out there is Red Hood. I might be a Nightwing stan, just be putting that out there. But how was it lending that level of their own, not just their unique voice, but in terms of movement and everything, in defining who they are apart from each other?
It was actually really exciting, but also the entire team really got committed to that, to the differences each bring. We are making a game with 4 main characters. The lines in each level are unique to them. The lines in each cinematic are unique to these knights. The animations that were brought to them are unique. Each of them has a different animation set that is very special to them. Same thing for the cinematics too. Wilson went in and recorded cinematics a different time for each of our knights, so that they would always be very unique and very, And what's fun about that is that each of them is different, both in gameplay style and in character and narrative, which means that every player should have one character they can fall in love with and follow through the whole story.
Which is Nightwing, right?
100%.
I'm kidding.
I like Red Hood too, guys. We're cool. We're cool. America, I'm curious, as somebody that's done directing yourself, how has that kind of like changed how you approach acting?
Oh my God, that is such a good question. I feel like the more you learn about the process, the more it makes you better at what you're actually doing, because you have different perspectives of understanding, okay, so there's a bigger picture. It's not just my part, and how do they all figure out together, and how do they all feed into each other? And it helps you build the character and figure out what the bigger arc is. I've done a lot of directing in live action stuff, and I did just direct a cinematic that's coming out. But this is a completely different type of storytelling, and so it was phenomenal to work with Wilson and the way he works in this 3D space and the way that he kept every cinematic different, even though there were 4 of us and he had to do it 4 different ways. It was unbelievable that he pulled that off. But understanding that you're part of a bigger whole helped me a lot as an actor, having done the directing stuff.
Sure.
Like, I am curious, like, when you're doing a cinematic 4 times, like how Groundhog Day does that feel, and how much does that change up?
Quite honestly, it is quite a technical marvel. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I mean, the 4 heroes each have their own qualities. You know, they'll have a lot of lore. So, but we've taught ourselves to kind of make sure that we love all 4 equally. That actually made those performances really powerful, because the 4 of those scenes, you know, you're going to have your own custom cinematic depending on how you play, but structurally for the game, you're going to have a similar scene. And the fact that we can kind of like interweave between different characters at any point in the game made my team's job quite challenging. But when you see the end result, and I hope the fans, when they do see that, they're going to be blown away, because it's quite eye-opening there.
Yeah.
There's also a lot to be said about the excellence of our actors, who are with us here today, in that they learn to work within this framework, but also not just work for their own character, but to give each other space for each other's characters as well. Each of them came to this with a great love for the character that they were going to play. They knew who they were playing. If they hadn't known them before, they'd done the research, but otherwise they'd known them for years. Some were fans of comic books, and that all, I think, really showed through in the work that they did.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say is I love what you said about the villains being representative of different traits of Batman. So were the orphans, right? All of the different characters were always counteracting and counterbalancing something within him. And so to create these characters to exist in a world without him, so that they are their own 3-dimensional character and not just a counterpart of Batman, was an amazing challenge. And it worked really well with the 4 of us together, all balancing off of each other.
Sure. And to that point, I mean, with Batman gone, Dick Grayson's the elder statesman. It's all eyes on Dick. Whether they clash up against him like Jason.
Don't feed that.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say all eyes on Dick, really. But like like in terms of like everybody's looking to him. Either they're clashing up against him like Jason, or they're looking more towards him like Robin. With that, how is it kind of taking that burden of responsibility and that level of expectation as Nightwing?
You know, the hardest part is always trying to find your place, whether it be leadership or equal. Certain people, every personality is going to need something different, and it's your job to figure that out, much like a chessboard. You know, the strategy is different for each person you play against. And in this situation, working with America was simple because we really clicked. She's just an amazing actress. She's Batgirl. It made it perfect for me. Robin, he took a position where he and I were like brothers. But like he was kind of looking for that role model-esque type feel, and I was trying to provide for him, but at the same time still see him as an equal and not mentor him too much, right? And then with Red Hood, it was give him the space that was required for him to be able to feel comfortable, then open up. And each relationship dynamic in its own way, much like how we did perform every scene. There was just one chair in a room, and it's like, do something different. And how do you do that, right? How do you make it unique? So it was a lot of fun.
And also, not to mention, we have Alfred in the game. And Gildart, the actor for Alfred, was also with us for a lot of these scenes, and he also integrated with all 4 of our knights that way very well, right? With everything that Alfred brings and represents. He's excellent at it. And I think the chemistry was really good between all 5 of them.
Yeah.
And his fight scenes were amazing.
Yeah, geriatric foo. You know, I think I have time for one more. And you know, what else can you tease as we're coming up and finding out more about Gotham Knights in the weeks and months to come?
Oh my God! Yeah, I've returned. Thanks for throwing me under the bus on that one. Right? Fair enough. That's what. So I mean, I think first and foremost, we've been going through a pretty exhaustive process of showcasing the individual heroes and kind of what makes them special. In particular, how they map to player style, like sort of what your particular approach is, how you like to apply your own tactics to the art of fighting crime in Gotham City. We're going to expand more deeply on that in some of the coming weeks and months to talk even a little more depth about the individual ability sets for the characters. What are the unique moves and the kind of special sauce that each character is going to be bringing to that fight? Because while we have a kind of a common basis in, I've been trained by Batman, I know how to like punch and kick and flip and use a grapple gun. It's as these characters evolve through their progression, you are going to see them move in 4 very different directions, and so we'll be able to showcase some of that in the coming beats.
Cool. And that's all the time we got. Again, this is Sam Stone at Comic-Con International 2022 here in San Diego with the cast and crew of Gotham Knights. Check out the game this autumn on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. Thanks again for taking the time, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.